Thank you all for joining us today. Today we'll talk about our updates and reminders, protests, where you can find additional training, and any other procurement opportunities. And we'll finish out with a life hack for today. All right, as we noted last week, there are new job aids and new templates. They're not new from last week, but this is just a reminder that we do have new ones out there. Please make sure that you're utilizing the most current versions from our website. Today we're going to talk about protests. Protests are, they stem from 30 ILCS 500-20-75. The code states, disputes and protests, the Chief Procurement Officer shall by rule establish procedures to be followed in resolving protested solicitations and awards and contract controversies. For debarment or suspension of contracts and for resolving other procurement-related disputes, at a minimum, the established procedures must include the requirement that the Chief Procurement Officer resolve the protest by means of a written determination within 30 days of receiving all relevant requested information, unless an action concerning the protest has commenced in a court or administrative body, in which case the Chief Procurement Officer may defer resolution of the protest pending the judicial or administrative proceedings. So let's talk about who can protest. Per section 1.5550 of the rule, any person may submit a protest related to the notice of the procurement, the solicitation document, any pre-submission conference, and any decision to reject a late bid, proposal, or response. This means that once we publish the solicitation, any amendments, hold a pre-submission conference, or reject a vendor's bid due to being late or deem a vendor non-responsive, they have the ability to protest. Overall, once the vendor learns something new because we've published or sent the vendor new information about an active procurement, that starts their protest period. Once the bid opening date has arrived, the second bullet comes into effect. Any person who has submitted a bid, proposal, or response may protest a decision to reject that person's bid, proposal, or response, or the decision to award to another bidder, offeror, or respondent. So how is a protest submitted? A protesting party must submit a protest in writing to the Protest Review Office as identified in the solicitation document. Protest must be clearly marked on the email subject line. The protesting party's submission should be concise and logically arranged and should clearly state legally sufficient grounds of a protest. The protesting party will need to identify themselves, the procurement that they are protesting, a statement of reasons for the protest specifically identifying any alleged violation of the procurement statute, a procurement rule, or the solicitation itself, including the evaluation and award. Conclusions of supporting facts and arguments may not be sufficient. Supporting exhibits, evidence, or documents to substantiate any claims unless not available within the filing time. This means that, for instance, if the vendor is waiting to include documents from a FOIA they submitted to an agency, they would put in their protest that they are currently waiting on the agency to fulfill that FOIA request so that they can provide all the documents to the Protest Review Office. Finally, they should identify their specific relief sought. This could be that if they were deemed non-responsive for an RFP, they might ask that that be overturned and that their proposal be evaluated. They might be asking to have an award canceled, or they may be asking for a rebid, or potentially if it's a protest for specifications, they might be asking for the solicitation to be modified. Overall, it must be submitted within 14 days. So when does that 14 days begin? If the vendor is protesting the solicitation notice or specifications, it would be based on the date of publication. This is why your SPOs update the available date to the date and time in which it establishes the date of publication on the bid on BidBuy. If the protest is in regards to Q&A being deemed non-responsive or the notice of award, the 14 days begins when the protesting party knew or should have known. So again, any time that the vendor becomes aware or should have been aware of the facts that they are protesting, that is when their 14 days start. So what happens after the protest office receives the protest? The PRO notifies the SPO assigned to the agency. The PRO will ask if there's urgency and will ask that the agency explain what makes it urgent. So what actions does the agency take? Section 1.5550E of the rules requires a stay of the procurement during a protest. Before the bid is opened, this may require the agency to extend out the bid opening date until the protest can be resolved. After a bid opening, but before an award, it may stay the ability for the agency to move or publish a notice of award. If it is an RFP, before you open pricing, there would be a potential stay of not being able to open pricing until that is resolved. If it's after pricing, again, it would be not publishing that notice of award. After award, it may create a stay that we do not enter into a resulting contract until the protest has been resolved. In each case, please work with your SPO so that they can provide you the correct information regarding your procurement. The agency should then review the grounds for the protest that the vendor submitted, supply a timely response to the protest. The agency's response to the protest must provide a ground for why the protest should or shouldn't be upheld in favor of the vendor. Provide detailed information for a clear understanding of events. The agency must provide the level of importance of this procurement along with any other crucial dates and deadlines that surround this procurement. Again, why is it urgent or what makes it urgent? The agency's response should provide a justified solution. For instance, the agency has supported that the vendor was not registered with the ITG at the time that the bid was submitted, and they submitted an ITG active registered vendor disclosures. Therefore, the vendor's non-responsive determination should be upheld and allow the agency to move forward with the solicitation. That would be an example of what the agency could state of what they need to do is continue with that action and would like to move forward with the solicitation. If any additional information is requested, the agency must provide for PRO review. So if the PRO determines that it requires additional information based on the vendor or agency statements, the agency must provide the information to the PRO so that they are able to complete the recommendation. This does affect the 30-day calendar because it does change when we have all the information to be utilized to make that determination. So again, until all information is received, that 30 days does not start. What happens after the resolution? So the PRO will review all material and make a recommendation to the CPO. The CPO reviews the recommendation and supporting material to make a determination. That determination may be affirming the state agency's initial decision in whole or in part, directing the state agency to issue a new solicitation, directing the state agency to award a contract consistent with statute and rule, directing such other action as is necessary to promote compliance with statute or rule. The CPO determination is not limited to these four. So how can we mitigate protests? Well, prior to the bid opening, before you even issue the bid, make sure your specs aren't overly restrictive. Pricing is set up in an industry standard format. Make sure specs are current. Don't ask for anything that is no longer available in the industry. If there's a Q&A, be sure to answer the questions in full, and so that it doesn't open it up unnecessarily to further confusion. For instance, the specs in the ISB said that the agency requires widget T. The vendor question states that they no longer carry that brand, but they carry widget T+. The state responds with, that should work, in the Q&A. This would be confusing because we aren't giving a direct response as to if the specs are now changed to widget T or T+, or if they're staying as widget T, or if either would be accepted as meeting the requirements of the solicitation. Make sure you answer the vendor's questions in full. If you can reference back to the solicitation, that's even better, because we're just reiterating and saying the same thing, showing them where they can find it directly in that solicitation. Again, though, please make sure the Q&A is clear and does not create further confusion or contradicts what you have put into the solicitation unless you are purposely trying to change a specification. If you are trying to purposely change a specification, please call that out. After bid opening, the non-responsive review and alerting vendors. So please take your time to concisely detail what the vendor did or did not do that led to their non-responsive determination. This should also explain as to why that was a violation of the code, rule, or solicitation. Please assure that your non-responsive letter or email is approved by your SPO prior to it being sent to the vendor. It is an active procurement. Vendors can protest the determination of met or not met, or their scores on the evaluation of an RFP. Generally, the PRO and agency will rely on the evaluator's comments to determine if all aspects of the RFP were considered. For instance, if all comments said, vendor excels in this industry, but all the scores were less than half of the available points, this would be an area of concern for the PRO to dig into further. However, if the evaluator takes time to write detailed comments regarding each of their scores, preferably even with page notations of the vendor's proposal, it can ensure that a fair and comprehensive evaluation was completed. After award, agencies should work diligently to comply with any requests for the procurement file information or FOIAs that are presented to assure that vendors are able to have all information that may dissolve their desire to protest the solicitation. Overall, being more transparent is better for everyone. We are able to help vendors understand our process. Sometimes some protests come in as just a lack of understanding of what was being considered or the overall procurement process. Allowing them to understand our process and have a detailed reason for why they've been removed from that, for instance, for a non-responsive, is a very easy way for us to give that information. All right, let's talk about more CPOS or GS trainings that we have coming up. Of course, you can find all of this information at our CPO GS Training Center. Introduction to Illinois Procurement. This will be held on Wednesday, October the 4th. This is available for 2 contact hours for UPPCC. You do have to register to attend this course. You can do so at this link or through going through our training center. Bid Bi-Monthly training. For September, this generally is the second Tuesday, but due to scheduling, this will be the first Wednesday of September. So if you have new staff coming on, make sure that you flag this as being the first Wednesday of September, September the 6th. The link on this page has been updated, so you can utilize this link. I've also updated it on our website so that when you go out, you'll see that for September 6th, this is the link that they would utilize. For Bid Bi-Monthly training, you do not have to register at all. You are able to attend any of the 4 sessions if one is more relevant to you or you're just needing to brush up on one. Bid Bi practice sessions. These are held every second and third Thursday starting at 9 a.m. There is no set agenda for these. We're able to just tackle any Bid Bi questions that you have as far as the functionality of the system. We had one last week on August the 10th. We will have one on August 17th, this Thursday. All right, our life hack. So, do you love eating cookies right after they're made? They're soft, they're kind of crumbly, they're great, right? But you lump it out too long, they become stale and crunchy and not as great. Maybe you like them that way. A lot of people like them to stay that soft and crunchy. So, after you bake your cookies, go ahead and put them in an airtight container with a slice of bread. It'll keep them nice and chewy much longer. All right, if you have any questions, please email us at cpogs.training@illinois.gov. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.